Okay, welcome to If My People Bible reading. This is part 40. We're in the book of Genesis in chapter 14, and Abraham went after his nephew Lot and got him back. All the kings went after each other, and they had their battles back and forth. One of them was the king of Sodom, and one was the king of Gomorrah, and there was a whole bunch of others that even the Rephaites who were coming from the Nephilim. These were the gigantic people in those days. A lot of these types of people, the majority of them were eliminated by battles, by death. And usually when you take a giant, let's say a giant's 20 foot tall, and there's a relationship out of it with a woman, um, if the woman could even have such a child, because of the woman's uh, genetic seed and so forth, the DNA, these giants would go from 20 feet to 19 feet to 18 feet generation after generation. And they would generation themselves out, just like we have today. We have very few people on this earth that are over 8 to 9 feet tall. And of course, back in those days, there were a bunch that were up to 20 feet tall. And if you think about that, 20 feet tall can build almost any of these ancient things that's all over the earth today. Excuse me. And now, but we still have people who are extremely small, um, and people around 3 and 4 foot tall. Um, this is not genetically correct the way it used to be. It is a defect that people just have to live with. It's just as much as someone is 7 foot 4. That is a defect. That is not natural. It's not natural for the bones. It's not natural for the this part of the skull. And this part of the skull becomes extremely thin due to the extreme extrapolation. The DNA is at a certain size and thickness of the skull, but as it gets bigger and bigger, it doesn't get thicker and thicker. It gets thinner and thinner. So it's not natural. So older people who are very, very tall don't live an old age as well as someone who's a man who's 5'7". The 5'7" man's going to outlive him. That's the truth. But because of the women, they didn't have gigantic women as much as they had gigantic men, and because that's the way Hasatan wanted it. But it didn't work out. No matter what he's always come up with, it never ever works. But these people still exist. I've met two people in my life that have 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes. They still exist. That DNA has not been cleaned up yet. It takes a long time to clean that up. So Abraham brings him back, and it gets interesting here. I think I got to switch glasses. Sorry about that. We are now into verse 19. I'm going to read that. Then Melchizedek, which means Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, and he was the priest of Elohim Most High. Comment, this is the intro to the name for the first time, Melchizedek. Melchizedek breaks down to like a king and a priest in one. Yeshua was a Melchizedek. Moses was a Melchizedek. And this is an example. And he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abraham by Elohim Most High, creator of the heaven and earth, and blessed be Elohim Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Now, from that, institutionalized churches say this. Oh, see, there's your evidence that you should tithe every week. You should your tithe and your offerings and take every tenth of everything you make and give it to me every week. First of all, that's not in the Bible like that. This is the first example here. I'm about to create it and show you um, a new understanding because we're just going to read the Bible and let Scripture interpret Scripture. Okay? Are you ready for this? As you read through this, you'll see this. Abraham took everything and took it away from all those other kings. Plus, he brought back Lot and all his property and everything that went with it. And then the men that helped him, they got to keep their share. And then anything that the labor and the effort that all the other people involved, they got to keep their share. Abraham gave a tenth of what he took in goods and services and gave it to Melchizedek. Melchizedek, he gave it to him. Now, he didn't earn it, did he? He took it. It wasn't from his salary. It wasn't from his earnings. It wasn't from his DD 214. It wasn't from anything. It wasn't from his weekly offering on the plate to church. It wasn't from his bank account, a tenth of anything. It was from that which he took. So in reality, Abraham accepted nothing, but a tenth of what he took, he gave to Melchizedek. That's what that means. It has nothing to do with tithes and offerings, folks. And then starting here throughout the entire Bible to the very end, where does it say that you do this? If you do it with a happy heart and you have agronomy in those days, if you have of goods and services and crops that you've grown and animals and so forth, you do that with a happy heart. It has nothing to do with some kind of they take everything and take a hard look at it, and the IRS takes 30% of this, and your church takes 10% of that. It's all crookery. And it is not found in the Word. There you go, churches. And then one more thing I'll say. It must be said. Who in the world started inventing about 120 years ago building a church, congregation, whatever you want to call it, put your name outside and go into a bank, go into a bunch of pagan people and begging money from them and getting money from them on loans, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30-year loans, business loans, and so forth, and then paying back these banks? Where did that come from? How in the world does this ever get started? The majority of the churches in the world today, not the United States, the world, are in debt. And they're looking at you, the people that show up every Sunday, and they get you by guilt. It should be by your joy and your heart that if you want to give to anyone, and when they talk about the widows, in fact, the Word talks about it, the widows and the orphans. These people are the ones that are down and out. Of all the people on this earth, the widows and the orphans need, and usually do need some kind of support and financial support. And they're there and they're everywhere. And if you want to give someone $100, that's fine. You give it to a church, they're going to take that and they're going to tithe that out. So they'll give them 10. You give them 100, the church will give them 10. Check the books. Check the books. All right. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself." See, you see, there it is. Just read through it yourself. Then in chapter 15, after this, the word of Yahweh came to Abram in a vision. "Don't be afraid, Abram. I'm your shield, your very great reward." But Abram said, "Oh, Adonai Yahweh, what can you give me since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus?" That was a servant of his. It was coming down to that's all he had, and he was getting old at this point. And Abram said, "You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir." Then the word of Yahweh came to him, "This man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir." Now that was supposed to be his son. Now another one comes before that. Another one comes before that through one of his servants. And that was a big no-no. And as a result of that, that's where we get the 12 tribes of Ishmael. That's where we get the 12 tribes that are Arabic today. And how's that going? How's that going, disobeying the Father like that? Not too good. Verse 5, then he said to him, "So shall your offspring be." Abraham believed Yahweh and credited it to him as righteousness. It's good. Comment, this faith is now shown in Abram. And verse 7, he also said to him, "I am Yahweh who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it." So Yahweh said to him, "Bring me a heifer, a goat, a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon." Abram brought these two of them, cut them in two, and arranged them in halves of each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. They were too small. Abram must have had a big knife. Then the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them off. As the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep with a thick and dreadful darkness that came over him. And then Yahweh said to him, know for certain that the descendants of will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. Actually, it comes out to 430 years, which is true. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your fathers in peace and be buried at a good old age. And in the fourth generation your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. And when the sun has set and the darkness has fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared and passed between the pieces. This whole thing is represented as you read it, this covenant that's going on, that Yeshua is going to be that sacrifice. In other words, as we started here in 12, 13, 14, 15 of Genesis, that there's, you're always saying, look, you're gonna be in the millions, which is us. You're gonna be in the millions one of these days. But that's still a small percentage considering there's billions of people who have lived and died and continue on. So with that in mind, that's still a remnant. So if millions of people are in heaven, that is nothing but a remnant compared to billions who have lived and died. And we'll pick it up next time.